I just got here like 3 seconds ago because of SantaCon. I saw two drunk Santa. Did you see it on the way up? Two drunk Santas and a drunk reindeer throwing up. So I took the car ran into traffic. I took the train. MetroCard was out of money. Got more money. Got on the train. Got on one of those bikes that pull you, and then ran. And I got here because of this guy.
Thank you, Darren. Thank you, Darren.
So I did see the film a few days ago. Unbelievable accomplishment. Congratulations.
Thanks, Darren.
I got to say, I first became aware of David as a film student. I saw Spanking the Monkey, and I had never seen anything like it. It was like clearly this new voice, but I couldn't quite figure it out. And now, you know, 8 films later, something like that, it just continues and amplifies, and it's so clearly every film has this voice. It was a beacon for me, so it's a real honor to be here with you to do this.
Thanks, Darren. And thank you, everybody, for coming out.
Yeah. And it's funny, one of the first times I met you, Lorenzo Di Boventura came up to us together and said, "Why do you guys work so slow? I want more movies from you guys. It's really pissed me off." Now, you clearly have taken his advice. So my first question is, this incredible run from The Fighter all the way up to Joy it's just unprecedented. The quality of films and the quantity of films, and you just keep hitting it out of the park. So can you tell me where's the energy come from?
I think I just decided to come from instinct and start not overthink things. You gave me a great quote, because this man was originally the director with The Fighter and had another cast attached to it. And somehow we did a director's thing that year, and you came up and you sat on my lap and you said hi, which was like a way of blessing me and saying, "It's okay, you made The Fighter, I bless you." And you had made The Wrestler, which was so beautiful. And I said, "Look at you, what happened to you? It's so great." And you said, "I got my head out of my ass." And I've stolen that quote since then, because once you have the procedure at Cedars-Sinai, you will never go back. You know, you have the procedure, they take the head out, there's a little indentation from the forceps, and then you say, let's not put that there again. Let's come from instinct. So The Fighter was this whole world of homes and people and families who are beautiful and flawed and loving, and they are the life you live and the beauty you arrive through, like in a fairy tale, and that's what delivered us to Joy. Eventually, women became more and more important. The women in The Fighter led to this woman in Silver Linings Playbook, who came in, who, you know, she ran into our set and onto our hearts as a 20-year-old, and I watched her bloom and grow up and move into her own house and unpack boxes, and that's much of the journey of Joy, was I witnessed this young woman grow into herself, and from being a kid, really, and that was a pleasure and a privilege to create a picture that was for her at the center of it, to be the unanxious, where she was not crazy in this picture, to be the unanxious presence in the room.
So talk about that first moment you saw Jen and what it was, and was it instant that you knew what it was, or did it take some time? Did you put her through paces, or, you know, that moment?
Well, I first saw her in Winter's Bone, and I knew she was very special. She just had a special chemical energy with the film. And then I was walking behind her into the AFI Awards, and she had a white dress on, and she didn't, you know, she looked like a kid who couldn't walk in heels. And
Still.
And then I left. I pulled, and I was told that was Jennifer Lawrence. And I said, "You mean the one in the big white dress who looks like she's from Orange County?" And they said, "Yeah." And my car was pulling away from the valet, and you were talking to her. It's a compliment. You guys were talking at the valet. You were talking at the valet.
We were talking at the valet?
Malibu woman.
Oh, yeah.
So I saw you two talking at I said, "The one that Darren Aronofsky's talking to?" "Yeah, that's the girl who ate the squirrel in the woods." "Yeah, that's the girl who ate the squirrel." So, and then she Skyped famously her, you know, audition for Silver Linings and put on the mascara and inhabited that character. And for us, every time it's a wish to do something different. Yeah. And it was a wish to honor the story of women I had known, and this woman, partly based on Joy, who is a very quiet, strong, forgiving person who it's almost like the godmother to us. And when we met her, that's what she felt like. And that's a very different energy that Jennifer had not done after doing this crazy energy in American Hustle, which was genius in its own way.
So the other theme that is this film that is completely David is, you know, these functional, unfunctional families. The fighter. So, the women, of course, from Alice and the sisters are just at the forefront, but just how these families work and how they function. And is it something that exists in all these stories? Well, I know it does exist in The Fighter, but, or is it something that you're creating or searching for and bringing into focus? Or just talk about that, the family.
It presents itself in The Fighter, and this is probably the most dysfunctional one since The Fighter, and they were just the facts of the case that engaged me, that the father was very loving, had a metal garage. This is what made up the psyche of a 10-year-old girl. That's why I wanted to make the movie. And her mother's soap operas, and the Baroque divorce, and the sibling was created because like from The Fighter, I like the dynamic of rivalrous siblings where one envies the magic of the other and can't help it. And the guy did call a 900 number, which she explained to me was a dating service, and that's how she financed the whole thing. So to me, those were details that were too good to leave out. But like in a fairy tale, I feel like that the obstacles, what would a fairy tale be without the goblin and the giant and the troll and the monster that you had to get to? They are what makes you. And my mother in heaven is looking down now saying, see, I made you as I insulted you and told you you weren't good enough. And I told you when you wanted to become a filmmaker, I said, save yourself the money and buy a subway token and take the subway to the Coney Island Aquarium and jump in the shark tank. It's my exact quote from my Italian mother from Brooklyn. And I said, because I don't think you can make it in that shark tank. And so in heaven, she's like, but because I said that, it made you make it. That's what she would say up in heaven.
So another thing that really struck me was that American Hustle was sort of, the corruption of the American dream. And this is sort of the success of the American dream, even though there's tremendous corruption throughout it. Was that a conscious thing that you were balancing the two? Did you see them as connected in any way, or is that just coincidental?
I think it's coincidental. I'm drawn to characters. I'm drawn to characters, and I'm drawn to inspiring people. I couldn't have done American Hustle if I didn't feel that I loved each of the characters. You could do a dark version of that. That would be a terribly dark film. But what I found is the romantic side of Irving with this amazing, crazy woman at home who was inspiring, and the love with Amy Adams. People have a reason they do things that's enchanting. I'm going to lean into that. I'm going to lean into what's enchanting. And this picture just was a woman who, her greatest flaw was that she allowed her true self to be buried, which was a metaphor I've lived myself. That would be otherwise diagnosed as having your head up your ass. And, I've also seen it in others. My own mother tried to get back in the workforce and couldn't. And so I saw many a scheme hatch at the kitchen table, and I just love when the movie suddenly becomes like a gangster movie halfway through the picture after she's been defined by their spaces. Yeah. She's been defined by her father's space, and I love The Best Divorced Couple in America too, because that was something I had never seen.
And is that the truth, or is that?
That's the truth. Yeah. The guy works for her ex-husband works for her, and they're best friends. He goes on vacation with her. The father has sued her and still works for her and is her friend. And she sits there. Me and Jennifer and Robert sat with her. And he said, when I made all these inventions and we looked over at Joy to see if it was going to be like the Jerry Springer show and she was going to grab his throat. And she just looked like this. She looks like Michael Corleone. She's just like a... Yeah, she rubbed her lap off, which Jennifer does when she's negotiating with the guy. And I love that she lets the guy negotiate against himself. And that is also true in Dallas. The business, because see, what happens at the kitchen table? You take Isabella's money, and she's your banker, and then you got to take her lawyer, who's the expert. What do you know? You're just a lady, a housewife. You go to California to claim your molds. This happened. The police say, well, you're some out-of-town crazy New York lady, and these are mold makers. So I believe the mold makers. I don't believe you. That happened to her. The whole patent. If you make anything worth anything, someone will try to take it away from you. And they'll never stop trying to take it away from you. And so that's part of what is true of the American dream. And the idea of success is really what interested us, was the broken glass and what's inside success, that it never ends.
Okay, switch to technique for a second. I want to ask you all about acting, so we'll come to that in a second. But film grammar, it's, The Fighter was this incredible, unique, neorealistic, Russell-esque take on that. And this film just had I need to watch it again to really sort of start to break down what you were doing. But it had such a clear language of its own. And does the inspiration come out of story for all of these different things, or is it just the limitations of the budget, or how do you develop how you're going to set up a shot?
This picture for us was sort of a departure to do something more formal, to tell the lifespan of a girl. So I was inspired by Citizen Kane or pictures from the 40s or 50s to show a childhood and show her dreams and then show what happened to her. And that's why we used silhouettes for the first time. Lena Sandgren, a great cinematographer, and we used dark and light to show more than ever what is the interior of someone. And I loved playing with time, which we did in American Hustle too. You know, you're with these people, you meet them at the height of crisis, and then you go back and figure out who this Irving guy was and who this Amy Adams person was, and then in there you meet her. You know, that she's married, or he had a wife. They're so in love. How wonderful. Oh, wait, she has a wife. So we did that with the romance with Edgar Ramirez. You already meet him in the basement as a loser singer, and why is he there? Well, this is why they fell in love. So you go, and that happens to people. They sit at their kitchen table, and the guy isn't in the basement by accident. He's in the basement because you fell in love, and he gave you magic, and I'm going to tell you about that. And so we did that at a time, and then we had the dreams and the soap operas. And the dreams were wonderful because they did not have to be literal. They were just emotional. And that was a new thing for us to do, which we wanted to go for it, feeling trapped.
I just want to compliment David for a second, because you take this cast from, you know, the great De Niro, Isabella Rossellini, down to young actors, new actors like Jennifer and Ramirez, yet everyone's working in the same tone. Everyone is doing the same movie. They're all speaking the same language. They get the same joke. And I'm curious how they must all have different techniques. How do you sort of cross between them to sort of get them to arrive at that, whatever, you know, that tone that you're trying to make?
I think a movie's like a song or a story. So I just keep telling it to them, and that's what helps me write it. I go to each of their homes, and Jennifer inspires me, and I see her unpacking boxes, and I see there's paper things in there that maybe were never seen in many years, and I think, well, that's kind of beautiful. She's all grown up, and she has these things from her childhood, and we start talking about that, and I just keep retelling the story. And as you do that enough times, the actors, I think, start to feel the story as you're telling it to them. And it's something we define as we go along. Don't you want to give yourself choices also? Right. So sometimes I'll say we should do this quiet. You know, when Jennifer has that breakdown of tearing down all of her paper, there's nothing like losing it in front of your family. And it's more humiliating in front of your children. And I always think of Jimmy Stewart in It's a Wonderful Life when he loses it in front of his children and he tries to apologize to them. And that's what that scene was like for me, when you're pushed to the brink by adult concerns and the compromises and disappointments of adult life, which are so heartbreaking. That can happen to anybody. And the one that we loved in the edit room was the last one we did, which was the one she did it, she whispered it. And the same thing happened with Christian Bale when he's screaming at Bradley Cooper at the start of American Hustle, "This is your mess. I'm not going to chase that mayor." And the last take, I said, "Why don't we just whisper this one?" And somehow that becomes the most powerful one. And do you do that?
I do. I try to get every tone, you know. With Black Swan, I'd be like, give me a little bit more Black Swan. All right, now a little bit more White Swan. And it was just became shorthand just to get the different levels of between it. But that's great when you get that. Yeah, yeah. How did you get the idea to have a dead person to narrate the story?
The great Diane Ladd has such a beautiful, rich voice. And I love that she was there were so many different kinds of women in her life who were influences on her. Her mother was weak but could look up to strong women like Susan Lucci. Her grandmother was quiet and steady and used a term I've been waiting. I don't know if as a filmmaker, I hold on to music, metaphors, and songs, and ideas like language. You'll be interested to know this because you made a movie called The Life of Pi. No, you made a movie called Pi. You got there before Ang Lee. And it was just with the Kabbalists running around, which is amazing. I said, "Who's this guy?" And my friend in the midlife called me up. He was in a scrap metal business in Buffalo, and said, "David, it's a hockey player, big guy." He goes, "I'm going to become a rabbi." I never saw him talk about God once in I knew him for 30 years. I said, "What?" He said, "Yeah, and he did a 5-year thing." And I suddenly said, "Yeah, he always was kind of a rabbi. He was always a good guy and like a solid guy." So I go to his installation ceremony in Phoenix where they gave him his own temple. And the old rabbi says to him, which just the whole thing knocked me out. It was so powerful. He says, "Are you, John, prepared to this? Are you, John, prepared to? It was like a Jedi ceremony. Are you? And the final one was, are you prepared to be the unanxious presence in the room? And that just, I still feel chills through my whole body when I say the words. And that's what her grandmother says to her. And I do believe that's what the grandmother was to that girl. And that's who Jennifer is inside of herself. She's capable of losing it as much as anybody, but there's something inside of her that's very still and strong. And that's, to me, is a very powerful thing.
Music. Sorry, I meant to ask you about that. So impressive, so varied. Does the music come first or does it come second? Sorry? Yeah. The king.
Thank you, Jennifer. Many songs are, you sit on them in a treasure trove, and you want to use them like, you protect them like kryptonite. You protect them because you don't want someone on YouTube to use it before you do, or some other filmmaker. And it can happen in the blink of an eye. So the Neil Young version of Expecting to Fly, which is this only song he ever did that had a big, beautiful orchestral swell for when she comes home and her grandmother's dying, and it becomes this very, very beautiful song. That I've been waiting for. Prokofiev's Cinderella is very magical for the little girls. You have Willie West, Baby I Love You. Feels like a song. I love songs that feel like you should have known it your whole life, but you don't. You're like, I never heard that. But it feels like you. And we took that great version by Eric Clapton, I Feel Free, which I've wanted to use for many years, the a cappella part where he sings with Jack Bruce, and we got the great African-American singer Brittany Howard from the Alabama Shakes, who did a song for us with Silver Linings, to do an a cappella overdub with herself. That's the chorus at the end, which was very beautiful, because I thought it was appropriate. It should be handed off to a powerful woman to sing it at the end.
Do you ever get do new songs come to you during
Yes,
any suggested?
yes. The Bee Gees was a song that, the Bee Gees have been like this weird go-to thing for me, starting with The Fighter, because as a child, when I was a young kid, I mocked them, because you're a snob as a kid, right? You're like, I only believe in the Rolling Stones, and you guys are trash, and I don't believe in you, and I believe in the Clash, and I don't. And then you grow up, and you're like, well, you can like all of them, and they're kind of operatic and sincere and beautiful. And I make Christian Bale and Melissa Leo sing the Bee Gees, and they said, there's no time to do that. I said, just give me one take. And I said, Melissa, Christian, did you memorize it? And God bless them, they did. Like she memorized something stupid in 5 minutes. And it's like, who wants to sing on camera? But I thank her so much for doing it. I think it was so beautiful. And anyway, I can't remember the question, but.
So someone asked about the Bee Gees, I think.
Oh, the Bee Gees.
No,
I was
it wasn't the
these.
question.
Well, that came up later.
Yes.
You don't know what it's like to love somebody, to love somebody, to love somebody.
A question about disco. Anybody?
Well, thank you guys for coming out, and thank you.
Hold on,
Darren,
we have
for
one more question. We're not done yet. Hold on.
I'm sorry, that's all we have time for.
No, I want to keep going. Another question. Come on.
I'm sorry, that's all we have time for.
Well, I want to ask about your DGA team.
Oh, I have a great DGA team.
Yeah.
Shelley Ziegler, they're all from Baltimore. And they all worked on The Wire and on The Sopranos and on Boardwalk Empire, and they're phenomenal. Shelley Ziegler, Michelle Ziegler, is just our rock. She's been our rock for 4 pictures. And Xanthus, who do you know whose first name starts with an X? Xanthus Vallon is our second AD. And every year I give them the same wrap present, which is Ravens tickets. And they're very excited when the Ravens won the Super Bowl and very sorry when that other situation happened. Down there, but they're an amazing team, and they make anything happen. They don't believe in no, and we'll say, we're going to do this thing in the snow with Jennifer. Jennifer's going to sing "Live and Let Die," and Shelley goes, "Okay, when is that going to happen in the schedule?" I said, "Well, just give us 20 minutes." Jennifer's going to do it in 20 minutes. I go, "Yeah." Oh, and she's also going to do "Evil Ways" as a backup in case we don't get the rights to "Live and Let Die," which has only been used in one James Bond film that Paul McCartney wrote for it, because you got to back it up, right? Jennifer, 20 minutes, both songs, bang, bang. I go, there you go. I like to play that game with the AD department. I like to play, let's bet the AD department. I'll bet you $20. I'm going to bet you that we can do this in 20 minutes. I like taking that bet. And then they challenge me. And we do these films in record time, but part of it, we use the instinct and the energy. And De Niro has welcomed it, as is she, my great inspiration, and Bradley Cooper, my great partner, and all of them. They say there's an immediacy to it. You don't have time to overthink it. You have to jump in and do it.
The great David O. Russell.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Darren.